Hi, welcome you all to my session on Firepower Next Generation Firewall Virtual on ISR Router using UCS-E E-Series module. My name is Krishnan. I'm a technical marketing engineer for the Security Business Group, Cisco Systems. Here I'm going to start with a brief introduction of Firepower Next Generation Firewall V on an ISR router and various components required to run this as a service on this router. And then following this, there will be a series of video to show you the demo on various deployment use cases of next generation firewall V on this ISR router using the UCS-E series module. So the Cisco Firepower Next Generation Firewall is a fully integrated threat-focused security software which provides the advanced threat protection features like application visibility and control, next generation IPS, and Cisco advanced malware protection for the network as well as the URL filtering. So this next generation firewall can be managed through the Firepower device manager which got introduced recently for this the VMware version of next generation firewall, or through the centralized management platform called the Firepower Management Center. The Firepower Device Manager is an on-box manager to configure the interface settings or the basic firewall functionality for this next generation firewall. If you want to configure this full-fledged advanced threat protection feature, then you need to register this next generation firewall V or the normal next generation firewall with the Firepower Management Center. So this Firepower Management Center, along with the next generation firewall, also can manage the Cisco Firepower Next Generation IPS as well as the Cisco Advanced Malware Protection for the network. So the advantage of this Firepower Management Center is it provides the complete and unified management for the functions like firewall, application control, intrusion prevention, URL filtering, as well as for this advanced malware protection. So using this, the security administrator can easily go from managing a firewall to controlling an application, as well as for investigating and remediating this malware outbreaks. So this next generation firewall V and firepower management V provide all this functionality, and it can run both on VMware as well as on the KVM version of this or the KVM flavor of the hypervisors. And and there is a RESTful API support through this Firepower Management Center to manage this next generation firewall. And this also, and there is also a device package to integrate this next generation firewall on the Cisco ACI, and also there is a public offerings of this next generation firewall in this Amazon Web Service cloud as well as on the Microsoft Azure cloud. So these are the components required to run the next generation firewall V as a service on the ISR router. On the software side, you need to have an hypervisor. In our case, it's a VMware, and then the next generation firewall V image for the VMware so that it can be installed or provisioned on top of this VMware ESXi hypervisor. And on the license side, you need to have a VMware ESXi license and also this Apex application exchange license on the router, and also the optionally the security license to enable this advanced threat protection feature on the next generation firewall like next generation IPS, the URL filtering, and then advanced malware protection. And then on the hardware, you need to have a UCS-E module with enough CPU cores and memory to run this next generation firewall V on top of this ESXi host. And these modules can be used either on the 4000 series ISR router or on the ISR G2 series router. So these are the range of UCS-E product we have in our Cisco product portfolio, and this range differs based on the number of CPUs and the RAM it support on each of these modules. This also varies based on the slot it occupies in ISR router. And here the N stand for the NIM module, which can be inserted in the HPIC slot for ISR router, and here the S stand for the single wide module which occupy one of the SMX slots in the router, and D stand for double wide module, which occupies both the SMX slots on the ISR routers. So each of these module has two internal and one or two external interfaces, and this number of external interfaces is based on the UCS-E model. So this is the mapping between the UCS-E interface and the virtual NIC in case of if you are installing the VMware hypervisor on this UCS-E module. This is a static mapping, and this mapping differs between M1, M2 module and then the M3 module. For M1 and M2 module, the interface to VNIC mapping start from the internal interface, and then it'll map to the and then it goes to the external interface. And in case of M3 module, the VNIC numbering start from the external interfaces and then to the internal interfaces. For example, on the as shown in the picture over here, for this UCS-E, there are four interfaces, two internal and the two external, and then the VNIC mapping is started from this external interface. Here the VNIC 0 is mapped to T2 over here, and then the VNIC 1 is mapped to T3, and then this mappings here is goes to the internal interface, where the VNIC 2 is mapped to the G0 of the internal interface, and then the VNIC 3 is mapped to the G1 of the internal interface. So here, when you log into the router and see this interfaces, you will see the UCS-E 1/0/0 as well as the UCS-E 1/0/1. So this interface will be useful when you want to do any kind of configuration for this internal interfaces. And using this internal and external interface, we have an options to stitch this virtual network functionality as a services between these interfaces. And in our case, it's a next generation firewall. In the first option, the VNF is stitched between the two virtual switch using the same internal interface, and in the second option it is stitched between the two internal interfaces. So and this is the third option here, and it is stitched between those external and the internal interface, and in the fourth option it is the VNF is stitched between those two between the external interface using the two V switch on the same external interface. So for directing the traffic from a gig Ethernet port to the internal interface and vice versa, you can use the one of those L2 technique. It could be as SVI, or you can use those Ethernet virtual circuit, which is also EVC in short. And we are going to see this in detail in our demo. So, and this is the next generation firewall deployment mode. And the next generation firewall is also called the Firepower Threat Defense Software, which is in short is a FTD. And this FTD can be deployed in one of this firewall mode, and this mode is device specific, meaning that before you register this FTD with the Firepower Management Center, you have to configure the FTD is one of this mode. It could be either in the transparent mode or in the router mode, and then once you register it, uh, then you can use this one of this next generation IPS mode. So on this next generation IPS mode is specific to the interface, which means that you can have two interface which is configured in inline interface mode, and you can take the one more interface and configure it in a passive mode or in the ER span mode. So the ER span mode can be configured only when the FTD is deployed in the router mode. So high availability is the functionality which is common for both next generation firewall as well as for the next generation IPS. Here this two unit will act in an active standby mode, and when there is a failure in the active unit, or if there is an interface level failure, then the standby unit will transition into the active state and then start handling those connections. So the advantage of it is provide this the same level of security functionality as well as the network continuity for the traffic which is going through this FTD. Okay, so this is one of the most common use cases for to run the next generation firewall V as a service on the router. And here each of this branch office has a directly connected internet access and also a secure tunnel to the head office. So the next generation firewall V is deployed in each of this branch office ISR router to protect it from the attack and the malicious traffic from the internet, as well as to prevent these attacks or any kind of malicious traffic which is going to the head office. So here the FMC is located in the head office so that all this next generation firewall in the branch as well as in the head office can be managed and monitored from the centralized location. And this is the topology and connectivity detail for this which I'm going to use for this demo, and have replicated this head office branch office kind of network setup to show this demo. So here the two next generation firewall is running in a HA mode on a two separate UCS-E module within the same router, and I have used the UCS-E 140S module on ISR 4451 router. It got two internal interface and one external interface. The external interface is connected to the switch, and there is a dedicated management port which is also called CMIC in short, and is also connected to the switch port. So this CMIC is used for managing the UCS-E as well as provisioning the ESXi on the UCS-E module using those virtual KVM features. So all this CMIC support the VMware ESXi management interface as well as the FTD management interface is configured with the IP address from 10.20.10.network, and which is configured in a separate management VRF. And there is a FMC which is provisioned behind this corporate headquarter, and the ISR router provides those connectivity between this FTD to the FMC. So, and using this topology, I'm going to show you various use cases by combining this next generation firewall mode with those UCS stitching options. And here in the first option, the next generation firewall will be stitched between the internal and external interfaces, and in the second option, it will be stitched between this internal interfaces. And on the high availability side, I'm going to show you the failover of this next generation firewall during this interface level failure as well as this device level failure. So this concludes the introduction session, and from the next video we're going to see the demo on different deployment use cases of this next generation firewall V on the ISR router using this UCS-E module. Thank you.